Well, it is seemingly time to start the podcast because, yes, the beat just dropped. Yes, episode 40 of the Until Next Week podcast is back at you. It is only myself in the podcast studio today. Yes, I lied to you all. I thought I would have someone else on, but Dane is not giving me his mic. I know he has a lot going on, but each day he's like, okay, hey, maybe we can get to you today. Maybe, nope, I forgot. Like even today, went to church and he was like, hey, I'll bring it to you. And he forgot. So one of these days we might get the mic. I don't know for sure, but in the meantime, it's just me. But Dane did send in a voice memo, so listen in until the end of the episode and you'll hear some updates from him and some responses to some of your questions on the pod. But until then, this is the Until Next Week podcast. Welcome back to episode 40 of the Until Next Week podcast. This is Samuelson on the mic, and we have a good episode in for you today. I think I'm just jump right into it. Golf drivers that don't hit the ball straight. That's what grinds my gears. As everyone knows, especially as athletes and everything else, it's the equipment that makes the player, not the player that makes the equipment. And I found that to be the case. This past week, I was in a golf tournament with some coworkers. It was a 4-man scramble golf tournament, to be precise. And for all you non-golfers out there, a 4-man scramble is basically when there are 4 people on a team. Each time you hit the best ball, you take your final score. It makes you look better as a whole because you can have some people that just aren't really pulling their weight. And then you have the other golfers who maybe go to the courses every other week. So it makes it interesting for sure. But I have not golfed in about a year. So I was definitely ready to play in this tournament. I was pretty excited for sure. And I did practice. I went to the driving range the day before the tournament. Hit pretty well, honestly. The ball was going kind of straight. I mean, it was going off the club pretty well. And I was pretty excited for the tournament itself. But I got there. And I hit the first ball of the day. I think it went nowhere. I'm like, hey, it's only hole 1. Like, I have plenty of time to make up for this. And I made up for it, honestly, on my second shot of the day. We were taking the best ball for one of the team members who drove it pretty close to the pin. I think we're about 150, 160 yards out. And I know they probably weren't expecting much from my first drive. That was very poor. But I chipped the ball, and it was only about 7 feet from the hole. And I think I got everybody's hopes up. I got my own hopes up. I'm like, hey, that was really good. I was not really expecting that whatsoever. So we got birdie on the first hole, and then it went downhill from there. And again, it's the club's fault. It's the club's fault. It's not my fault. It's the club, obviously. But I think the rest of the tournament, the other 17 holes, I don't know if I hit. I think I hit 1 drive straight. I had a few other good chip-ins here and there, and then a few made putts. But for the most part, my equipment was not doing what it needed to do. I fully take the blame for my equipment because my equipment is the reason that I played so poorly. But maybe next year, I might be able to do a little bit better. We'll see. Maybe better equipment will be what makes me better, but practice might help. So I'll keep you updated on my golf journey. I know that's really exciting for all y'all out there, but until then, that's going to be my grinding my gears of the week. And kind of jump into a little bit of life update from here. As you are listening to this episode, the NFL is finishing up their 4th week of play. It's been an exciting season for sure. There's been a lot of injuries. There's been a lot of celebrity sightings. There's been a lot of good play. But I mentioned last week that I was in a fantasy football guillotine league where the worst team each week gets kicked out because you start with 18 teams because there's 18 weeks to the season with the 1 bye week. And I was mentioning, hey, there's a chance I might not get knocked out. Like I got a chance that I'll still be in this another week. And I was wrong. I had a very poor performance, or I had a poor performance. My players had a poor performance, and I was, in fact, knocked out of the league by the one, the only, Big Daddy Brad Ellis. Yes, one of the Ghost Runners podcast hosts. Brad Ellis had the second lowest score, and he ultimately eliminated me with the other members of the league. So he lived another week, But as you listen to this week's episode, he is now probably out. He had a very poor showing. One of his quarterbacks was in fact injured, so I think he is now gone. So I apologize to Brad. You're now in the losers bracket with me. By losers bracket, I mean we just don't play at all now. But I know you do have another league on Tuesday nights. There's 2 different leagues that they made. They made one that I drafted on a Monday night, and I think they had another one where you draft on a Tuesday night. So I think that league might be going okay for him. But in this league that I'm in, he is also in the losers side with not yourself, with me. I don't know what I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, that's good. We're good. Awesome. Sweet. So I think I'm just going to jump in to some different topics that you listeners of the podcast sent in to us this week on the Instagram. Yes, the @Until Next Week podcast Instagram. I knowing I would not probably have a co-host this week, I was looking for ideas. You know, that's what you do. You can't just go off your head on everything. So I was like, hey, does anyone have anything you want to talk about this week? And I sent this to Dane because I was like, hey, he'll probably have some stuff that he might want to answer because we've received quite a few responses. So I really do appreciate all y'all listeners out there, and keep sending in ideas. Like, even if we don't have a poll going up, just send us whatever you're thinking. Like, our DMs are always open, and we always like shouting you out on the podcast. But I had Dane respond first, and then right as I was about to start recording this podcast episode, one of the longtime listeners of the pod, by long time I mean about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, I don't know, but we've mentioned him before. Yes, Alvaro, you sent in a topic that you wanted us to discuss, and Dane did not see this, but I did. I was like, okay, this suggestion by Alvaro should be the first topic that I discuss during this portion of the podcast. And he truly just wanted us to discuss how Travis Kelce is helping Taylor Swift by putting her on the national map. Yes, we know Taylor Swift, or maybe you didn't know about her until the Travis Kelce news. Yes, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are most likely dating. That's what it appears to be. But it's crazy how much he is helping her, because not many people knew who Taylor Swift was. Like, I mean, I know she sings a little bit here and there, and she has like a tour where she goes to like local theaters and performs, but honestly, I think this could help her reach the big time. And I don't know, if you have any thoughts on this, send in your suggestions, send in voice memos, etc., and let us know what your thoughts are on this topic. Okay, seriously though, it's funny that he sent this in, because a lot of other individuals are saying that Taylor Swift has put Travis Kelce on the map. And if you say that to any sports fan, they'll be like, no, what are you saying? Travis Kelce, he's one of the best players in the NFL, arguably one of the best tight ends in history. But realistically, how many Swifties across the world do you think knew who Travis Kelce was? Let's be honest. How many Swifties across the world knew what American football was? Like, this was not even on their radar, because as you know, in Spanish, soccer is called football, and football is called football americano. And that's just because Americans are the only individuals who truly play the great sport of football. Besides, there's like a Canadian Football League, but that doesn't really count. But all of a sudden, this American football player is put on the radars of millions of fans across the world. And this is just shown to be so evident because in the past week, I believe Travis Kelce has gained like 900,000 Instagram followers. I think he was around 2 million, and now he's like 3-point-something million. It's ridiculous. And even his brother, Jason Kelce, who's also an NFL player on the Eagles, has gained like 150,000 followers out of this, which is crazy. Like, that is a huge jump for both these guys, just because it appears that Travis Kelce is dating Taylor Swift, and this is the Taylor Swift effect. Like, she does this to people, can really boost or hurt people, just depending on how you look at it. But for Travis and everybody involved with football, it's looking great. I know the NFL sent out an open invitation to Taylor Swift to show up to any NFL game whenever she wants, because tonight the Chiefs play the Jets. And I'm sure this will be, again, a super highly rated game. It might be the most viewed regular season game, like one of the biggest ones ever, because this time they announced Taylor Swift would be in the stands like earlier this week. So you know there are people who could care less or I guess could not care less about football, who are watching this game just because they might be able to see Taylor Swift and her new boyfriend, Travis Kelce. It's so crazy. It's nuts. Like, it's just like a common topic now in like workplace environments. Like, hey, you see the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce news, especially being in Missouri. Like, it's nuts. Like, I'm not even a Chiefs fan. I'm Packers first, and then Chiefs I cheer for because they're in Missouri. But I find this fascinating because anytime Missouri's in the news for something positive, I'm like, let's go. Let's go. That's pretty awesome. But besides the giant follower increase that Travis and Jason gained, I think a lot of this was due to their podcast that they have, and they discussed the news. They discussed that Travis and Taylor appeared to be dating, and I know that was their biggest podcast episode ever because all of a sudden, there's all these Swifties who maybe know nothing about football who are listening into this football podcast. I had never listened before, and I listened this week, and it was pretty good overall. I wasn't a huge fan of their editing. It was a little jumpy, but overall, they had good voices. They had some good topics, and they were smart. They talked about football for like the first 35 minutes, and then they addressed the rumors, addressed what happened at the game last week, addressed how Taylor Swift had showed up, and it was pretty cool to hear. And I think it was cool on Travis's part that he was saying that he would not talk about this a ton in the future. He kind of wanted to keep the podcast more football based and kind of keep his personal life personal. Like, that makes complete sense. Like, we don't need to know everything about his personal life, but either way, it's still pretty intriguing, pretty interesting. And I look forward to seeing what happens in the future because of this. Oh, and one other thing, there are so many like businesses who are just like taking advantage of this moment, which is brilliant. Like, you got to take advantage. If you're like in a marketing department, like, this is perfect for you. If Taylor or Travis or Jason or anybody mentions anything about this situation, it could give your brand so much recognition. And one of the companies who did this brilliantly was the designer of Travis Kelce's outfit he wore the night that Taylor Swift showed up to his game. And it was just like a weird, like, it's like a painter's outfit. I think originally it was called a bedroom painting denim jacket. So it was something to look at. But as soon as they announced that Taylor Swift was at the game, the business was brilliant, and they renamed the jacket the 1989 bedroom painting denim jacket. And I think most people did not realize this was the case, but this was a great marketing ploy on this business's part to help give, I guess, the Swifties out there an idea of like, hey, where did this outfit come from? And with it being 1989, they're like, okay, we're going to eat this up. Like, this is awesome that they had this 1989 bedroom painting denim jacket that Travis decided to rock because of Taylor. And in reality, it was not the 1989 jacket. It was just a normal jacket that had color similar to the 1989 album, but they changed it to make it look like a brilliant business move. And something else that's just, again, I'm just going to, a couple more things about this whole situation. If you have Travis Kelce, or if you don't have him, I guess, in fantasy football, you got to pick him up. Like, find any way to get him because he's already the number one tight end in fantasy football. But with Taylor Swift in attendance at his games, you know Patrick Mahomes is going to find a way to get him a touchdown ball. Like, he's going to show off so much. It's me crazy, and I'm happy to say I do have him on one of my fantasy leagues. So if he goes off this week, there's a chance I could win overall for this week because my other players did not show off in my other fantasy league. But that's something just completely different. And then one other thing, Donna Kelce, yes, Travis Kelce's mom, she got so much, I don't even know, so much like viewership or so much celebrity statusness, something like that, last year during the Super Bowl because both her sons were playing each other in the Super Bowl. And now, last week, she was next to Taylor Swift in the Kelce NFL suite. And she got, again, just so many more people were like, hey, Taylor Swift sitting next to Donna Kelce, Travis Kelce's mom. Like, that is so cool. And then this week, I think she's definitely playing into it because she went to see her son, Jason, play for the Philadelphia Eagles. She wore her, like, Eagles jersey, and then she was brilliant, and she wore the hat for her son's podcast because, you know, she's going to get so many more cameras on her because of this situation that's occurring. So people are like, oh, okay, I got to check out this podcast. And what's even cooler is she sat next to Jake from State Farm. I don't know if she was more excited to sit by Taylor Swift last week or sit by Jake from State Farm this week. And it was even cooler is Jake from State Farm, in one of the pictures they had together, he had a chicken tender, I think ketchup, and seemingly they were out of ranch, I believe he said, which is just another kind of a dumb reference, but last week, Taylor Swift, when she was at the game for Travis Kelce, she had a chicken tender and then just like a little bit of ketchup and ranch. And this random Taylor Swift like Twitter fan account was like, oh, it's Taylor Swift with a chicken tender, ketchup, and seemingly ranch. And it just blew up. And again, where the marketing was brilliant for all these companies, I think Heinz ketchup came out with a new product. It was like ketchup with seemingly ranch or something else along those lines. Like they made an entire product off of this random social media post within days. Like how do you do that? That is so brilliant on their part, and they're going to make so much money because of it. I know several other like social media accounts, especially like chicken places, were doing something similar. And yeah, any social media manager is trying to do anything they can associated with Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, etc., because it will get them views and it will just help their business, I don't know, drastically. Who knows? Who knows how much is helping them, but it is pretty fun to see, pretty cool. Again, happy this is all happening in Missouri. But that can be the end of our... Oh, wait. Okay, one more thing. You probably hate this, but there's one other thing that I found so fascinating. There's all these random, like, I don't know, like journalism magazines and articles online from people who do not know anything about sports. Like, it is ridiculous how little some of these people know about sports, but now they have to write about sports because of Jason Kelce. I saw an article where they're like, okay, she's now dating the Oklahoma City Chiefs tight end, Travis Kelce. Like, I don't think I've ever heard that combination of words together. The Oklahoma City Chiefs, not even close. I heard someone say that, well, it had city in it, so maybe that's what they were thinking, but no. Get it right. And then one other funny thing is they're like, okay, she's going to the game this week. The New York Jets versus the Kansas City Chiefs, AFC juggernauts. The Jets are not juggernauts. They would have been, but then Aaron Rodgers got hurt within 4 plays of the season starting. So now they have Zach Wilson, who's just a very, very bad quarterback. But just reading some of these articles from people who know nothing about sports, trying to seem relevant in sports, is pretty interesting. But that's it. That's the end of it. No more Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce talk this week. We can jump into Dane's voice memo, and he'll respond to several of the questions we were sent on the Instagram podcast, and then I'll address from there, and we just kind of go, you know? So here it is.
Hello. Until next week, family. This is Dane again. Check in with you guys because I won't let Samuel have all the fun. So, I mean, you guys are probably wondering update on me. So I guess the first thing I'll start with is when you're listening to this tomorrow, it'll probably be about 10 days since I've had surgery. I had surgery to remove my testicle. That was the origin of the cancer, and they're biopsying it, but they pretty much know what it is. I mean, it's testicular cancer. And then I had a meeting with the cancer doctor last Thursday, and he said that he gives me probably a 75 to 80% chance of beating this, which is really cool. He said that we're going to start this chemo on not tomorrow, but October 9th, so next Monday. That will be a little bit harsher on my lungs, but he said if we do this specific kind of chemo, it still opens the door to surgery if I need it in order to remove tumors from my lungs. He goes on to say that the plan A here is to do this chemo. Hopefully it kills all the tumors and all the cancer in my body, and then we're just good. But he said most likely what will happen is I do this chemo, it kills most of the tumors, and the remaining tumors will be like pea-sized, and then I would be sent to St. Louis to do surgery where they can microscopically, hopefully, remove the remaining tumors, and then we'll be good. If that doesn't work, if the chemo's not working, there's another chemo, I believe, that we can also use that'll be easier on my lungs. However, once I use that chemo, I can't, proceed with surgery. So that's why we're going with the more aggressive chemo at first, just to give us more options on the table. But I'm feeling pretty good. I get a port put in on Tuesday. Not looking forward to that, but it is what it is. And then outside of that, I've been in really good spirits, really good conversations with people, because people are really down to talk to you once they find out you have cancer. But I just get to tell people about Jesus, and it's been so cool. and such a unique opportunity that the Lord's given me, where I'm like somebody who has talked the talk and like said all the stuff, and now I get to walk the walk and say that he's good in this. He's so good, and I see him in the details. And like the 12 tumors suck, but like, man, is he good in this. Like, I get to slow down. I get to have conversations that I always, quote unquote, one day hoped to have. I get to have them today and now, and it's been really cool in that, because people are really receptive to what I'm saying. And it's also really cool that like I'm encouraging even some of you guys like in your walk, in your faith. And it's just like, listen guys, cancer sucks, but it's like God's bigger than that. He doesn't need the chemo to even save me, but maybe this is how he saves me, or maybe he doesn't save me at all and I get to see eternal glory. And so out of it all, he's good, and this is for him. Like, life is for him. Like, that's the point. We so often forget that. I so often forget that. And then you get, punched in the mouth with cancer, and it's like, he's still good. Like, there's going to be a day where there's no more tears, no more sickness, and it's going to be glorious. So, I hope I beat cancer, obviously. However, like, he's good no matter what. That's just what I want you guys to remember. Also, some of you guys sent in some questions, and I was going to answer 2 or 3 of them while I'm on the voice memo here. And I don't know that I can go back and switch to the questions that Samuel sent me a screenshot of, so I'll just go off the ones I remember. He told me to stay away from this one, but somebody sent in one that said, are you a Republican or Democrat, and why? And my answer to that would be neither, because I honestly don't believe either side is telling us the truth. So I feel very apathetic about making a decision of that. And furthermore, I'll tell you, even the last person I voted for was Jesus Christ of Nazareth specifically, because it's me standing up and saying, I don't want to have to choose the lesser of 2 evils. Like, that's not how a democracy should work. That's not how America should work. And furthermore, I use it as an evangelism tool, because the people around election time are like, who are you voting for? And I say, the most qualified candidate. And they're like, well, who is that? Is it so-and-so? I'm like, nope. No, you voted for so-and-so? And I say, no, I voted for the most qualified candidate. And they're like, well, who is that? And I'm like, well, let me tell you about a man named Jesus. And let me tell you some of his policies. And so even in the way I vote, I want to honor God. And so that's what I'm going with. And yeah, so I'm neither a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a Christian. So that's what I am. Another question that somebody put on there, I think it was Jack. He said, well, do we think the Cowboys will even make the playoffs? First off, that's such a rude question. Like, of course we're going to make the playoffs. I've spent so much time thinking about the Cowboys since I've been off work and whatnot. And last Sunday, when they lost to the Cardinals, I was so upset. And so we better beat the Patriots here in about 2 hours, or else I'm going to be very upset again. And I mean, Jerry, he better get on the line, because I need to talk to that man. And so it's like, yeah, I think we'll make the playoffs, and Trayvon Diggs going down is not good. However, I believe this team will rally. At this point, you've listened to 6 minutes of me talking. So I guess one more as we go into it. I'm trying to remember any of the questions that you guys are asking. My sister wants to be on the podcast, big veto, because she's just going to go on and slander me. Speaking of which, she tried to sabotage me my day after surgery because she gave me a melatonin, and then like 20 minutes later, she goes, hey, your bandages need to come off like right now. And I'm like, what? I'm about to pass out. This is ridiculous. And of course I was like, well, fine. And so then she took the bandages off. She gave me a sponge bath, and it's just been really funny. My sister Lindsay was my first nurse post-surgery, and then my brother Cole was my second nurse post-surgery, and Cole was by far the better nurse. Lindsay kind of was a slob, left stuff everywhere, and Cole cleaned like my apartment and got me like a air humidifier, and was refilling that, got me a Brita filter, got me some pumpkin bread from Starbucks. Lindsay did a really good job too. I'm not complaining about that, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, guys. I'm in good spirits, and you guys have really encouraged me in this, and I'm just so thankful for you guys listening to some guy from Springfield, Missouri. I'm really just some guy who tries to be funny, and for some reason you guys listen. So I really appreciate that. And now back to Samuel.
Even in his most serious times, Dane still finds a way to slander his sister, Lindsay. It's inevitable, and that's how you know that Dane is honestly doing okay, or he at least is taking everything pretty okay for the most part, because his humor is just awesome. Like, he is just so lighthearted, but he still finds ways. Like, he's given his whole story on what's happening right now, like surgery, like treatments, everything, and then he's like, okay, but honestly, Lindsay, she was bad at what she was doing. So it's honestly awesome to see him do that. I'm sorry, Lindsay, that he trashes you so much, but I think we might give you a chance. I think you said in 2 weeks you are available to potentially record some of the podcasts with me, so we'll see if that happens. I know you sent in some other questions to discuss, so maybe I'll just save those until that episode. So we'll see. Just keep listening, and you might get to hear Lindsay give her side of the story here in maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think some of the other stuff that Dane mentioned, one of the things was his Democrat-Republican topic. I told him, hey, probably just avoid the political topics, because I think there's a few different ones mixed in. And of course, Dane being himself, he went for it anyway. And honestly, that was an awesome response on his part. Again, the whole political system is so messed up nowadays. Honestly, each side neither really has fully Christian viewpoints, which us being Christians, that's what we want, but obviously it's not the case in the political sphere. But him just saying even that he's not voting for either side and being able to use that as evangelism tool is just it's who he is. It's so awesome to hear him say that, and it really does. It's another way for him to talk about Jesus, which is so cool. Something else I know he talked about on there was our good friend Jack. By I say our good friend, it's my good friend who also likes to slander Dane. And it was funny, a few weeks ago, he sent me pictures. He was like, hey, show these to Dane. I'm going to beat him up sometime. And then I was like, well, Dane isn't doing too hot right now. I was like, oh, I feel so bad. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. He understands. But Jack's an awesome guy, awesome dude. But then he just likes to trash the Cowboys anyway, or just hey, they're not the team. They're maybe not the ones, but it is interesting. I know when he left that review or left that voice memo, he had not seen whether the Cowboys had beaten the Patriots, but I can confirm, yes, the Cowboys beat them 38-3, which is nuts. It's crazy. So happy for Dane. I am, again, a Packers fan, so one of these times when the Packers and Cowboys play, that will be when I definitely cheer against the Cowboys. But other times, they can do whatever. Just make Dane happy. I know that's why they play at this point. They play for Dane. That's the only reason to play if you're a Cowboy. So, yep, I know there's several other topics as well, but we're starting to get a little long, and I don't really want to go on a long monologue, which I usually do, but we might save some of those for next week. We'll kind of see how it goes. But thank you for sending in those topics. I hope you like Dane's responses and his updates and everything else. And we'll just keep giving you more updates as we move forward in the future. So we'll kind of get into our final thoughts of the episode. We received a new Apple Podcast review, and honestly, this might be our best one yet. It was 5 stars, because those are the only reviews we accept on Apple Podcasts. Yes, leave us a 5-star review. And it was from someone labeled A Real Experience Expect. I don't know if they meant to have a longer name there and it got cut off, but that's what it says. And then they titled the review Nice Pod, and that was great. That was a really good title. And then their description from there, it just said farts and poop. And I'm like, wow, that was really sophisticated. Thank you for leaving us that great review. But honestly, you can leave those as much as you want. As long as they're 5 stars, that's all that really matters. And I have no idea who left that review. I have maybe some guesses, but honestly, it could be anyone. So if you did leave that review and you want to leave us a voice memo also, feel free. We could play it next week on the podcast, but we'll just wait and see until then. And I think that really takes us into our sponsors of the week. Number one, I know we mentioned it, I believe, before. I think Dane mentioned it on his voice memo. And yes, Jesus Christ of Nazareth is our number one sponsor of the week. Again, it'll never change. He is the one, the only one who truly matters. Yes, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And then that kind of takes us into our verse of the week, which I had as 1 John 4, 7 through 12. I picked these verses because I help out with a ministry called K-Life, and I gave a lesson this past week over love, and we use a section of 1 John, and this was part of it. And it says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us." And that section just really stood out to me because, especially in like this day and age, I don't think we really love our neighbors well. And like that's one of the most basic commandments. Like God wants us to love. Like he sent his Son to die for our sins because he loved us, and he only asks from us, like when we follow him, he wants us to love others as well. So no matter who that person is, like even if you don't maybe like someone in your life, you are still demanded to love that person. And if you do that, I can like almost promise you, you'll have more joy in your life. You'll have a more fulfilling life. Just love. Like that is so simple, but I think we mess it up so often. So 1 John 4, 7 through 12, love people, you know? Our number two sponsor, who we also love, let me tell you, Jake Trust and Art, definitely one of our original sponsors of the podcast. We could have not done this without him. Such an awesome dude. And he reached out to me this week because he's actually looking into starting a YouTube channel for his art that he does. He wants to talk about it more. I think talk about some other topics as well. So whenever that does get dropped, I'll try to mention it on here during this segment of the podcast because he is such a stud. He's great at what he does, and I'm excited to see how he uses this platform to kind of further his career. Also, shout out, he did ask me what kind of microphones we use for our podcast, so I had to name drop them to him, and he might use the same gear going forward. So wish him luck in that endeavor. And then our number three sponsor of the podcast, you know, we just got to keep it J's. We had Jesus, we had Jake Trust and Art, and now we have Jason Kelsey. For a second, I was going to pick Jackson Mahomes, but he's a little controversial. So we'll go with Jason Kelsey, who is Travis Kelsey's brother, and he's just like the most humble dude. Like, he's an NFL player, but he seems so down to earth, and I feel like I learned more about that during the podcast I listened to him with his brother Travis, and he just seems like a really genuine dude, which I find awesome. Like, that's one of the coolest qualities I have. Like, if you're really humble and down to earth, even when you have a boatload of money, a Super Bowl ring, etc., like, that is something to look up to. I know they have like a documentary about, I guess, kind of like their journey in football, and I haven't watched that yet, but I think I need to because I think that would just give me more background on just their upbringing and how they became who they are. And yeah, just Jason Kelsey seems like an awesome, awesome dude. So I wish him all the best going forward. I know he probably has another 1 or 2 years left in the NFL, so I hope he makes the most of those and it's just continue to be an honestly a awesome dude. Like, he's awesome. So look him up sometime if you get the chance. And I think this is going to be a short episode, so I hope you like that. It's a little different than usual, but just kind of some closing thoughts. Like, keep telling your friends, like, if you enjoy this podcast. Like, that's one of the easiest ways to grow a podcast is word of mouth. It's pretty hard to promote a podcast. Like, we try our best, but if you tell your friends or tell other people, like, hey, this podcast makes me laugh, or I enjoy this, or I'm listening to this for whatever reason, like, it helps a ton. So if you enjoy this, please tell your friends. Also, feel free to leave us voice memos. Like, again, you can find that in a link in our episode descriptions if you follow us on our Instagram at Until Next Week Podcast. On Instagram, there's a link where you can leave voice memos. Also on our Twitter account, which I haven't done anything really with, but we made it recently. I think that's just at Until Next Week. You can also go to that bio and leave us voice memos from there. And also, if you have friends who maybe might listen to this, but maybe they don't want to listen, like, they can leave voice memos still. Like, tell them about that. Maybe they'll enjoy it, and if they know that they're going to be on the podcast, maybe they'll listen more. So those are just some of the thoughts on how we want to grow this podcast. So please tell people if you get the chance. But honestly, most importantly, through all of this, just please continue to keep Dane in your prayers. Like, so many of you have reached out to me and told me that you're praying for Dane, and I know he appreciates that so much. Like, that's huge. That's how he's going to heal from this. Like, yes, he's going to heal from the doctors, but honestly, like, God is the ultimate doctor. So please keep him in your prayers. Keep sending the positive vibes. I know he really, really appreciates that. I know he mentioned that in his voice memo he left earlier, just about like all the kindness that he's received from this. And it means a ton. So please keep him in your prayers. But I think that's about it. I got to keep this a little short because the Chiefs are playing right now, and I got to get some more content to talk about. Let me tell you, going solo is not the easiest thing in the world, but when you have Taylor Swift making news with Travis Kelce like she is right now, it makes it a lot easier. So I don't know. Thank you for listening, and this has been the Until Next Week podcast. Peace.